This conference will now be recorded.
You want to stay online, you're more than welcome to as well on video. It's up to you.
I'll mute my mic. I'll just listen in.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, we will get everything started. Good evening, everyone. I'll go around with some introductions before we start the meeting. With us today, we have Councillor Ron Mamchuk. Good evening. Councillor Janine Boulanger.
Good evening, everybody.
Councillor Curtis Clayton.
Hello, everyone.
Councillor Shane Pelche.
Evening.
We have our CEO, Mitch Duval.
Evening.
And we have our Assistant CEO, Dominic Lemoine, who will be doing controls for the meeting tonight. Again, we are still practicing social distancing. We're doing everything online as much as we can. There are people in the council chambers, from my understanding, that will be participating at the public hearing. Again, I want to thank everyone for coming. Before I start the meeting, I just want to congratulate all graduates of 2020. I know that it's a very difficult time. You're not getting to do what the rest of us were fortunate enough to do, which is celebrate with friends, family, and go to your convocation and then have a great grad party. So do the best you can and continue to succeed in life. I know that this is just a small hiccup to greater things for you all to come. So good luck with everything. I will start the meeting. I will call the meeting to order. Sorry, do I have a mover?
Ron Mamchuk.
Thank you. Second.
Councillor Pelche.
Thank you. I'll call for the question. All in favor? Please, oh, sorry, we're doing this online. We'll be doing a cast your vote online, so there won't be any voice or hand raising. Go ahead and cast your vote.
Councillor Pelche, are you in?
Yeah, it went through.
Okay, we will carry that 5-0.
Thank you very much. We'll start the meeting at 7:09 p.m. Moving on, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Clayton.
Thank you. Second.
Councillor Boulanger.
Thank you very much. I'll call for the question. Before I call for the question, are there any additions or comments? Okay, please cast your vote now, seeing none.
Sorry, folks, I keep missing one councillor. This time it's Councillor Boulanger.
I did it a long time ago. Maybe it's too early. But I am in favor of the agenda.
Okay, so we'll carry that 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on to item 3, adoption of minutes. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Boulanger.
Thank you. Second.
Councillor Pelche.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Mr. CEO.
Thank you. The last meeting that was held was on June the 2nd at our regular council meeting. At that meeting, we talked about reopening the playgrounds, so the a motion was carried to do that, as well as there was discussions regarding a Blue Cross benefit plan enhancement. Council also carried that. Also talked about a video surveillance policy when it comes to putting up cameras within the communities within the RMA Reach Out, so that was also carried. as well as during the COVID times, some of our lease holders are having difficult times making ends meet. So I have yet to be working on that to try to create a policy or a plan to come up to try to assist these businesses, mostly the daycares, but we'll do a full review on that, and hopefully I could get that done out by the end of the month.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Are there any questions from council or comments?
On here.
Yeah, we'll give, seeing none, I will call for the vote. Please cast it now.
And again, with the technical difficulty, oh, never mind. I take that back. Carried 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to make a note. I do not see Councillor Belanger on screen. Has she been kicked out or is she here with us?
She might have lost power or something, Chris.
Okay, well, we'll let her reboot, but we are still a quorum. So if council's okay with continuing without Councillor Belanger, we will do so. Council unanimously is okay with it?
Yeah,
She's-
I don't think she needs logging back in here.
Okay. Okay, moving on. We are moving to committee reports and minutes. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Clayton.
Thank you. Second.
Councillor
Council-
Belanger is back. Sorry,
Yeah.
folks, my internet kicked me out. Everything went.
That's okay. Again, I'll just, I said it to council, but if that happens to any other councilors or myself, we'll just continue if we have quorum until we can log back in. So, Councillor Belanger, we're at item number 4. We have a mover. Do we have a seconder? Sorry.
Yes, that was me.
Yes, right. Thank you.
All right, we've received reports from Mayor Ewan for the WMR John Q, Community Futures RRR, the Reach Out Chamber of Commerce, l'AMBM, the Communications Committee. Report was received from Councillor Clayton regarding the Sanigath CDI and the Red River Weed Control Board, as well as Councillor Mamchuk submitted his report on the Seine Red River Watershed District.
Thank you. Are there any questions, additions, or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll
No,
call.
Curtis. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I was just going
yeah.
to ask Curtis, good discussions on the fiber.
Yeah, really positive. It's glad to have something in the report finally. But yeah, the CDI made a decision on Valley Fiber, so we'll have to discuss that further
Okay.
with council.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Anything else? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. Please cast your vote.
I'll be a yes on this one. The vote option doesn't come up for me here right now.
The vote is carried 5-0. Sometimes people vote on the wrong topic, so it pops up ahead of time when I open up the screen. So I think that's what's happening. So just ensure that you're on the right line for voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Mitch.
Moving on to item 5.1, accounts paid to be approved. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Pelletier.
Thank you. Councillor Pelletier moves, seconded by Councillor Mamchuk.
Okay, we have one batch that totals just over $1 million. The grunt of that batch is one check that went out to Manitoba Water Services Board for over $1 million. That is related to our pipeline twinning project, bringing an extra line from the Sanigath water plant to the St. Adolphe water plant. With this payout, we've now maximized our share of the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 with the province and feds, totaling $3 million. We are now, we still have a few claims left to be done for the water plant expansion, some remedial work to be done, some extra work to be done regarding the pipeline twinning, and some minor work left to be done with the well mechanism projects. Those will continue to be split on a 50-50 basis with Manitoba Water Services.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from council? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. Please cast your vote.
The vote is carried 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on, 5.2, accounts not paid to be approved. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Belanger,
Thank you. Second.
Councillor Clayton?
Thank you very much.
For the accounts not paid to be approved, we have two batches. We have a small batch regarding a utility refund. That's a person that paid too much and is moving away and being reimbursed. The second one is for $275,500. Miscellaneous bills here and there. Councillor Pelche had a few questions on those, and those were answered and replied back to all of council as well. The grunt of all the invoices are either public works related or utility related. It is public works busy time of year, so they're moving on some projects and some operations.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from council? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. Cast your vote.
Vote is carried 5-0.
Thank you very much. Moving on, 5.3, payroll to be approved. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Pelletier?
Thank you. Second.
Councillor Belanger,
Thank you.
This is in regards to payroll 12 for municipal employees that goes back from May 24th to June 6th. There are some hours of overtime for Public Works authorized by the Public Works Manager. As I said previously, it is their busy season and they are currently into the gravel program, hence some overtime hours required there.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, I will ask council to cast their vote.
The vote is carried 5-0.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, we will go to the public hearing section of the evening. We will go with 6.1.1, D7 2020, Etienne Huberdeau, 145 Leclerc Bay.
The proposal is to vary the maximum accessory size from 250 square feet to 988 square feet for the purpose of a pool and surrounding deck. Notices were sent out to 100 meters of said property, as well as the MRPD, the Public Works Manager, Building Inspector, Councillor, CEO, Fire Chief, Claude Suren, as well as the Municipal Board, Municipal website, and posted at the St. Adolphe Case and ESSO.
Thank you very much. I will open the public hearing at 7:21 p.m. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor from the council chambers? Hearing none. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor online with us? Anything received in favor?
Nothing received.
Is there anyone wishing to speak against in the council chambers?
Yes, there is. One moment, please.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello,
Good
so I'll
evening.
just, hi,
Good
so
evening.
get you to say your name for the record, please.
My name is Michael Maswal, 149 Leclerc Bay, so right beside the proposed deck pool combination. So I want to say that I'm not totally opposed to them having it's going to be big, it's going to be nice, it's going to be exactly what their family needs and wants. However, when you look at their proposed plans right into my yard. They're saying a 4 foot from the side yard to now that side yard and their deck, that's me. They're over to my yard. So the privacy level goes out the window. What I would like to see is perhaps larger than 4 feet be there, because there's 10 feet on one side and 4 feet on my side. And the privacy you've got going up on their deck on page 2 of the proposed plan, it's great, but for people in the future who are going to request the same thing, ask for that to be in writing, that it's a necessity, so that other people don't have their neighbors completely staring into their yards.
Okay, I appreciate it. Again, you're cutting in and out. Just for the assistant CEO's record, I'm getting some issues. I don't know if the rest of council is having the same cutting in and out.
Yes.
Yeah, I did understand all of it. And I lost the name. So if you could just give me your name one more time.
Zawalski, and I live directly next to 145 Leclerc Bay at 149.
Thank you very much. So is there any questions for the gentleman? Council?
Right now, there's a fence between your 2 yards where that 4 foot
There is
distance is.
fence at the moment. One will be going up this weekend, but even still, that fence is only going to be right.
Any other questions from council?
Sorry, the fence that is going up this weekend is how high? 6 feet?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
It basically becomes obsolete when at 5 feet off the ground. So that's part of my concern.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. Anything else from council before we continue on? Okay, Michael, thank you. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, you're good with the 5 foot privacy fencing though, Michael?
Yeah, it seems reasonable.
You just want stipulations that it doesn't come down if they sell or somebody else comes in?
Yeah, I want to be sure that that 5 foot privacy fence up and in place, and maybe that there's a bit more of a buffer than just for myself and them. Because like 4 feet isn't very much, or 6 foot tall on average. You can picture what 4 feet is. That isn't really very much between your neighbor's deck that's standing right there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anyone else from council? Okay, thank you very much. We will move on. Thank you. I appreciate that, Michael.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Dominic, is there anyone else from the council chambers?
No, I believe no, there's nobody else.
Thank you. Again, we're having a bit of some glitching, Dominic, so I don't know if you can fix that, change the network or not, but I will continue on with, is there anyone wishing to speak against online? Anything received against?
Nothing received against.
Thank you. I will do a last call for anyone wishing to speak in favor or against, or any comments towards this matter. Okay, I will close the public hearing
I'm
at
not
7.
sure if the owner,
Go ahead, Dominic. Sorry, say that again.
sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was just, Nadine Huberto, I believe, is on the line. She might want to speak.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, you had mentioned that there is going to be a privacy, just to address the concern of the 4 feet, which is within the bylaw, which is why we chose the 4 feet, right? We will be having a privacy fence between, and that's why we are putting the privacy fence there, is to have that privacy above the fence, to give that to our neighbor, because we do realize that it's that close. We do have enough room to come in an extra foot if he's wanting the extra foot, so to give him 5 feet instead of 4, if that's needed. So I just wanted to give you guys that extra info if that's needed to help make the decision.
Perfect. I appreciate that, Nadine. Thank you very much. Does council have any questions for Mrs. Huberdeau?
Yeah, I have a question. I appreciate the plans and the descriptions and everything. It's very, very well done. And you probably obviously have thought of all the variations and the layouts that you would want it to be, and this is what you came up with. So this might seem like a dumb question, but have you considered turning the pool 90 degrees, which it seems like you've got a lot of backyard space left there, and then that would bring that 4 foot in quite a bit more than just the 1 foot extra that you're talking.
Yeah, we actually don't have the room in the back to turn it that way.
Oh, it says, I thought it says 31 feet
Yeah,
backyard.
the yard slopes so much, it just wouldn't
Okay.
work. We're on the dike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It would be like one of those wave rider pools then, Shannon.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from council before I move on?
I just want to make sure I got the measurements right here. So the deck is 49.5 inches off the ground, and then you've got another 5 feet of privacy fence on top of that.
Yes.
Okay. So about 9 feet. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. I'll do one last call if there's anyone else wishing to speak on behalf of the matter. Okay, I will close the public hearing at 7:30 p.m. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Pelletier.
Thank you. Second.
Councillor Clayton.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so the resolution will read, therefore be resolved that variation application V7-2020 be approved with the following conditions: that the applicant must obtain a building permit from the Armorichot office for the proposed pool deck and pool, that the pool is not to be put in service until all safety fencing, self-closing and self-latching and lockable gates are installed, that the pool and deck must comply with all setbacks provided in table 6-1 6-1 of the zoning bylaw 9-2019, and that the variation 7-2020 be approved in order to attain the building permits.
Okay, I'll open it up for discussion for council. Does anyone have anything to add? Any comments, additions, remarks, council?
I have a question about, we talked about this a bit at planning, about the actual square footage of the land for outdoor decks and being attributed to your accessory size. So it looks like they've got a ground level section of decking. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mitch, but that can't be included in the accessory building size calculation, is it? Or do you know what's included in the accessory building size for this application?
My understanding of the zoning bylaw when it came to accessory uses or buildings is I always like to use the word buildings. So basically you don't want to clutter up your backyard with a whole bunch of accessory storage sheds all over the place. I think when you're talking deck, there's, I guess, some maybe leniency may not be the right word, but some give regarding the square footage on that. Again, if somebody wants to put a whole deck across their whole backyard, that's their prerogative. I think I'd have to confirm that, but ground level decks is basically, you're still maybe a foot off the ground right by the time you put your 2x4, 2x6 on the ground. It's not ground, but tough one to explain.
Anything else to add, Councillor Boulanger?
No, I think I would like to see ground level decks not part of an accessory building square footage calculation. The pool itself is over, so, you know, it's just, yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm good.
Thank you. Anyone else from council wishing to speak or comment?
I'd like to get that 5-foot privacy added to the variation.
Okay. Mr. CEO, you'll note that. So you're asking for an extra foot, Councillor Pelche? Is that what you're asking for?
No, the privacy railing. It's in the plans, but just make sure it's part of the variation application as a condition.
Thank you. Does council also want to entertain bringing it in 1 more foot to try and appease the neighbor beside them to make it a little bit more friendly, I guess?
Yes, I think if it's doable, then definitely do what you can. Yep.
I think it's a good idea too.
Okay. Any other comments from council?
Is that another requirement to put as part of the conditions of the variation?
Yes, it sounds like council is unanimously agreeing to that. Council, give me a quick nod if you agree. Yeah. Okay, so Mr. CEO, do you need to reread it because we've added things or no?
I'll start with number 5. 5 will be the inclusion of the 5-foot privacy fence. And number 6 would be the variation to go from 4 feet to 5 feet minimum side yard requirement.
Thank you very much. Okay, I will ask council to, I'll call for the question. Council, please cast your vote.
The vote is carried 5-0.
Thank you very much. Moving on to 6.1.2 V8-2020 budget garages, DeGraff, 436 Lewis Road.
The purpose of the variation is to vary the side yard from 15 feet to 2 feet for the purpose of building a garage on the existing pad. Notices were sent out to 100 meters of said property, as well as sent to the MRPD, the RECHOT manager, the building inspector, council, CEO, fire chief, and the applicant, being Budget Garage. It was posted on site as well as the municipal board and municipal website.
Thank you very much. I'll open the public hearing at 7:36 p.m. Is there anyone at the council chambers wishing to speak in favor?
No, there is not.
Thank you. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in favor? I see there was a letter online of support. Mr. CEO, was there anything else added?
Nothing else added beside the letter of support from Peter and Linda Hume, who are neighbors to the west.
Thank you. Council, did you want us to read the letter in full in support, or you can all see it? You're good? Okay. I will ask if there's anyone to speak against in the council chambers.
No, there isn't.
Is there anyone wishing to speak against online? Is there anything received against?
Nothing received against.
Thank you. I will do one last call in favor or against, as well as any comments or remarks wanting to be made on the subject. Seeing none, I will close the hearing at 7:38 p.m. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Belanger.
Thank you. Second.
Ron Mamchuk?
Thank you.
Resolution would read, therefore be it resolved that variation application V8 2020 be approved with the following conditions: that the applicant must obtain a building permit from the RMA office, that the applicant must include architectural plans as requested by the RMA building inspector, that submitted plans must include building code restrictions for the north wall due to the 2-foot setback, as well that V8 2020 must be approved in order to obtain the building permit approval.
Thank you very much. I'll open it up for questions, comments from council. Is there anyone wishing to speak from council?
I just want to say I know the property quite well, and the house to the north is on an angle facing away from this property line, and it's quite a big separation between the two. I agree that garage has been there forever and before it burned down. And it fits, I'm okay with it.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Belanger. Anything else from council?
Out here.
Okay, I will ask council to cast their vote now, please.
Vote is carried 5-0.
Thank you very much. Moving on to conditional use applications. Moving on to 6.2.1, C10 2020 Wayne Zacharias at 1267 Marchand Road.
The application is to allow a single family dwelling in a agricultural limited zoned property. Notices were sent out to 100 meters of the said property, as well as to the MRPD, RECHOT Public Works, Building Inspector, Council, CEO, and Fire Chief. Was posted on site, as well as the municipal board municipal website.
Thank you very much. I'll open the public hearing at 7:40 p.m. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor in the council chambers?
No, there is not.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor online? Is there anything received in favor?
Nothing received in favor.
Thank you. We'll move on to opposition now. Before I ask anyone that's wishing to speak In opposition, I will ask Mr. CEO to read the multiple residents opposition letter, as well as state the names that have signed it. And this might make it go a little faster if there are the same concerns in person. I just asked for new comments after the opposition letters have been read. So I will move on and ask Mr. CEO to read the opposition letter from multiple residents first before asking for others to speak.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The letter is dated June 17th, 2020 to the Armor-Richat Council. Submission of opposition to the conditional use application C10 2020 regarding 1267 Marchand Road. Attached are submissions opposing conditional use C10 2020, which is a table for tonight's public hearing. The submission forms a list of objections and concerns by way of clarifications. The concerns were included to highlight the serious issues that the development at the property of 1267 Marchand Road would bring and are meant to add weight to the need to deny the conditional use application C10 2020. That is, no support for development at this site is implied by the inclusion of the concerns. Due to COVID-19 health issues, no master signature page has been attached. Each household has signed off on an individual but identical submission form. Additional household submissions of this group form may be forthcoming. Your due diligence and consideration of the community's opposition regarding this matter would be appreciated. Sincerely, undersigned, Marchand Road residents. And I believe in here we have 12 letters that are the same that have been signed off by 12 different individuals. Do you want me to read that 2-page letter that was signed, Your Worship?
Council has it for their review and they've had it for the last couple of days. I think for our council to do their due diligence, we should read that letter. And then Mr. CEO, if you can just list the names that have agreed and signed that letter, that would suffice.
Okay.
When you get tired, Mitch, just let me know and I can do some reading for you.
Thank you, Councillor Pelletier. We're still early in the evening, so it shouldn't be an issue.
Okay.
Dear Council, we, the undersigned residents of Marchand Road, do not support the conditional use application C10 2020 to allow single-family dwelling in an agricultural limited zone located at 1267 Marchand Road in Howden, Manitoba. We have the following objections. Number one, 1276 Marchand Road is located in the Red River Valley designated flood area. The Macdonald-Richat Planning District recommends that such agricultural land in this area not be developed. This plan prohibits the subdivisions for rural residential purposes, but the proposed conditional use has exactly the same effect. We encourage the Armor-Richat to adhere to the letter and the spirit of the development plan. Even with the Red River Valley designated flood area, this property is amongst the lowest elevations, averaging 754 foot ASL, and is inundated well before flood stage at 760 ASL is reached. Number three, the amount of fill required to raise the hilltop building 121 by 124 will require unacceptable levels of heavy traffic on Marchand Road, resulting in hazardous dust, road debris, and road damage, and probably riverbank destabilization at the slump on Marchand Road. The geotechnical report supplied by the applicant specifies a flood protection hill that is not in compliance with the regulations and contains an arithmetic error. The study used a 4:1 ratio for the slope, 4 horizontal feet for every foot of vertical elevation, but the hills over 10 feet high require slopes of 5:1. A 20-foot hill with a 5:1 slope needs more fill than one of 4:1 slope. The study refers to flood elevation at this lot at 775.5 and at a hill that is plus or minus 20 feet high. It is not clear if 775 is the anticipated water level of a 1 in 200 year flood or the flood protection level, but it should be noted that the hill will not be less than 20 feet high. On average, the hilltop will be 21.5 tall and require more fill than a 20-foot hill. C, an arithmetic error estimated the footprint at 275 by 280, but it should be 281 by 284. To comply with municipal and provincial flood protection standards and slope elevations, the hill would require 40% more fill than previously estimated. The amount of fill needed represents over 3,000 deliveries by large dump trucks, and while some fill has been delivered, a great deal more is required. This truck traffic would be hazardous to the residents and infrastructure. Should conditional use application be approved, we have the following concerns to be addressed by the RM. It appears that a recent property survey has not been done and physical markers to define the property boundaries are missing or obscured. There is therefore a risk of encroachment on adjacent properties with fill and stored materials, rubble, etc., and vehicles and equipment vehicles. Specifically, the boundaries of the public lane easement plan 61678 August of 2017 should be clearly marked. This is important to maintain the Manitoba Hydro access to their lines, access to River Lot 52, and to allow public to continue the use of this public lane. Number 2, the amount of truck traffic associated with the development site will be significant. The RM needs to prepare mitigation and management plans for A, dust abatement. Road dust is always a respiratory hazard, and especially during the pandemic of a respiratory disease. 2B, noise is ongoing concern and hours of hauling operations need to be well managed. C, debris on and surface damage to Marchand Road, east and west of Red River Drive, will need to be well monitored and corrected on an ongoing basis to ensure safe use by residents and possibly emergency responders. D, the riverbank slump opposite of lot 1155 is a serious pre-existing concern. Vibrations by large volumes of heavy truck can serve only to hasten the bank destabilization. Development of a mitigation plan is urgently required. 3, beet lime mud, usually contained in cadmium and phosphorus, deposited at the site could contain groundwater, river water, and riparian habitat. Sorry about that. Removal or management is required to ensure it is not exposed during construction, excavation, piling, drive, and does not enter the river during high water events. Number 4, riparian stability can be adversely affected without appropriate setbacks and management and excavation drilling effluent. See number 3. The hilltop building site will need to be farther west than indicated in the geotechnical study to accommodate the longer and higher slopes. It is important that the eastern edge of the hill footprint, about 2.6 acres, does not encroach on the riparian habitat there. 5, should a septic system be installed, the field below grade level will frequently be covered in river water. See elevations. We are concerned this will render the field inoperable and result in the improper disposal and treatment of sewage. We appreciate the opportunity to express our concerns and acknowledge the efforts of the RM of REACH-OUT to consider them. We have Brittany Wilderman, Sean Tucker. We have Jim Wilderman. We have Jan Nennis. Sheena Basasson and David Basasson. Marion Weidman and Rodney Weidman. Lucien and Marie Steensensos. William Coquet Lynn Bates. Barbara Stewart Rob Stewart. Maureen Story Dustin Story.
That's correct.
Robert Sirota and Leslie Sirota. Edward Yablonsky. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. CEO. I appreciate that. I will now move on with, is there anyone wishing to speak against at the council chambers? Keeping in mind that if you want to speak and you've already been a part of the statement given, I ask that you just let us know or reiterate your position. But if you had any additional comments, you're more than welcome to make them. But in the essence of time, if you just want to reiterate your position, please come up and just say that you are on the letter and you are opposed. Is there anyone
Mr.
wishing?
Mayor, there's also another opposition letter in.
Yes, yeah, I understand that. And we'll read that one after, but I'm just doing the multiple residence one in case there's a double dip in the people that are at the office. So is there anyone wishing to speak against?
No, there's not.
Okay. Anyone online wishing to speak against, keeping in mind the same procedure? Other than the opposition letter from Verhaeghe, was there anything else received, Mr. CEO?
There was another letter received this afternoon. That letter has been put on council's radar. The letter is from Amanda Verhaeghe and Stefan Metherall. You care for me to read this letter as well?
Yes, please.
All right. June 16th, 2020, to the Armory Shot, Honorable Mayor Ewan and Council. Dear sirs, madam, regarding the application conditional use and the applicant Wayne Zacharias C10 2020. I'm just going to increase the font size here. Thank you. I am writing in respect to the above application on behalf of myself and my husband. We own and reside at 1227 Marchand Road. We both vehemently oppose any request by the applicant to have the public lane that presently runs between the northern border at River Lot 52, owned by Mr. Kiao, and southern property border of our property 1261 and 1267 Marchand, privatized and transferred to him or anyone. The public lane has been used by residents of Marchand Road, both east and west of the Red River, for decades as a route to bike, walk, quad with our families and or dogs down to the river. The existence of the public lane was or ought to have been known to the applicant at the time he purchased his property, and he should be reserved and respected as public land regardless of whatever intentions he may have for his property. In that regard, the applicant ought to be prohibited from continuing to block the public lane and be required to remove the heavy equipment and or vehicles as he's currently parked on the public lane. He also ought to be prohibited from altering the public lane and all setbacks requirements respecting the construction of any flood dikes ought to be strictly followed should council approve this application. The applicant should also be required to remove the private drive sign the applicant should also be required to remove the private drive sign he placed where the public lane meets Marchand Road. This sign not only contains a misstatement of fact, but is misleading and has caused confusion and uncertainty amongst the neighbors. In addition, the applicant brought in fill from the sugar beet factory. This fill was deemed toxic and was only to be used for certain applications provided specific criteria included immediate capping of the toxic fill with clay were met. The toxic fill were brought in by the applicant and has been sitting out uncapped for well over a year now. It has been through 3 floods, and the degree to which it might have been spread during those floods and contaminated neighboring properties is unknown. If the application is to be approved, the applicant ought to be required to remove and or immediately cap all toxic fill, to perform soil tests on neighboring properties to ensure that no contamination has occurred. The soil tests are particularly vital as Mr. Keogh, the applicant, immediate neighbor to the north, to the south, keeps vegetable gardens on his property that are within close proximity to where the applicant dumped the toxic fill. Mr. Keogh is likely unaware that the fill brought in by the applicant was toxic and could be harming his property and his vegetables.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seal. I apologize for the quite a long letter for you to read. Next time we'll get an auto reader. Is there anything, oh, sorry, I'll go to a last call. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor, against, make any comment before I close the public hearing? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing at 7:58 p.m. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Belanger.
Second?
Councillor Clayton?
Thank you very much.
Hello? Hello?
Hi, we just closed the public hearing for, what number are we at? C10 2020 Wayne Zacharias. I believe you're
Yeah, I
probably.
couldn't get my microphone working, sorry.
That's okay. I will ask council if they're willing to make an exception and go back to reopen the public hearing. Mr. CEO, is there any procedure we need to do to reopen it for her to speak?
No, I think because of the sometimes technical difficulties we may have, it would be fair to ignore your closure of the hearing. You are the chair, so it is up to your discretion, but that I would recommend just to keep going as if the public hearing is not closed at this point in time.
Thank you. Then as chair, I will ignore myself as normal, and I will leave it open for Miss Trina Zacharias to make any comments she's wanting to make.
Oh, hi, yes. Just a couple things I wanted to address. The beet fill that was brought from the plant was not deemed toxic. It was capped, and all of it has been capped as per the instructions from the provincial government. So everything was completed in terms of what was the requirement by the government for that. As far as mounds of mud coming in, we have very few trucks bringing in mud. We're actually excavating our own mud for our mound. So we've done quite a bit of the excavating ourselves and have had very limited truck traffic. There was no trucks there last year, and I think maybe we've had 20 deliveries so far this year to date, and we're not expecting a whole bunch of more deliveries, so it will be dug at our own yard.
Yep.
And the mounds are being completed in compliance with the Manitoba flood regulations, and we do have the phase 1 geotechnical report completed.
Thank you, Mrs. Zacharias. Anything else to add before I ask council if they have questions for you?
No, there was quite a bit there. I'm probably missing some points, but those were the main things.
Okay, council, do you have any questions?
I have a question about the geotechnical report. So you said phase 1 has been done. Normally, and maybe Mitch, you can answer this too. Normally, we require a phase 2 geotechnical report as well, correct?
Yes, that's correct. That's
upon
the mound completion. So the phase 1 indicates how tall the mound has to be in compliance with flood regulations, and maps out the lines of where you can put the mound so it does not cause any kind of damages to any riverbanks. And then once the mounds are completed, then the compaction test in phase 2 is completed in order to start building.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anything else from council?
Not here.
Sorry, one more question. Do you have any documentation or certification about the beet mud that was used? I've heard you're the first person I've heard that has said that it is not toxic and does not contain contaminants. I've heard from many other residents, even before this issue, saying that it is, and how important it is to cap it, and important that it can't be disturbed, and how important that it cannot be used for dike construction because it's not dense enough. So I'm just curious, do you have some scientific?
Yeah, I have all of the engineering reports. It was a study. Hopewell Developments actually was in charge of removing the beet juice because they're developing that Bishop Grandin site.
Mm-hmm.
So their engineering department has a complete study done on that beet material, and it contains, I believe it's a high pH level or something. I'd have to recheck the documents, but it's not toxic, but it will not allow for like something that grows roots more than 4 feet because of the certain level of pH, I believe it is. So it grows, or things will grow on it. You can grow grass and etc., but it's not a toxic material. And the reason why it was capped was because it was bringing in apparently noxious weeds, is what I had heard.
Right. Now, have you used this material as your dike base?
It's a base for where a shop will go. It's not stable enough to build a home on. And our engineer, we brought it in for testing to 2 or 3 different engineers, just to see what this stuff was, and it's not stable enough to build a home on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Zacharias. I will do one final call for anyone wishing to speak at this hearing. Seeing none, I will now close the public hearing at 8:04 p.m. officially without ignoring myself this time.
And we still have Councillor Boulanger and Councillor Clayton moving and seconding the resolution.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. The resolution will read, and again, we always try to, as administration, word the resolution. If council would pass the resolution, it would be up to them to debate everything that's in the resolution as well. So therefore be resolved that conditional use application C10-2020 is approved with the following conditions: that the applicant obtains a building permit from the Armor Rechot, that the submitted plans are to be include detailed architectural drawings stamped by an engineer. Applicant is to apply for and obtain a flood elevation permit and septic permit from the province. Applicant is responsible for all associated costs with connecting to the municipal water drinking system. That the dike and building setbacks from the Red River must comply with the geotechnical report provided by GME Consultants of February 2018, that the applicant will not hold the Armor Rechot responsible for any future riverbank issues or concerns, that the applicant will be responsible for the cost of dust control on Marchand Road until construction of the pad is completed. The applicant will be responsible for any damages to the Marchand Road during the construction of the pad and home to be determined by inspection of the RMA Public Works Manager before and after construction, and the applicant provides a signed confirmation letter accepting the terms of this order. There may be site audits to conduct to ensure compliance, and non-compliance may revoke the cause of the conditional use at any time.
Thank you very much, Mr. CEO. I will open it up for discussion with council. Anyone from council wishing to make comment?
Well, I have quite a few comments, so if you guys can just bear with me, I'd really appreciate it. I did meet with several residents of the Howden area earlier this week, and they brought several points to my attention. And I just also want to make it clear that due to COVID, they aren't able to be in chambers tonight, but they didn't want that to be deemed as them not taking this matter serious. A couple of things that don't sit well with me, regardless of the comments that have already been said, are the survey that was done for the public road and the easement for the driveway. When we met in planning and we were discussing this public road, it didn't show an easement, and it didn't show that that's where the driveway should be. The public road is there for Manitoba Hydro, and as the other residents said, other reasons, but the easement is to the south of this public road, and that's supposed to be his driveway. However, the whole issue with that is being a very low spot in the RM on a riverbank, it is always apparently underwater, even in a non-flood year. That whole driveway and area is underwater. So in order to have that accessible, it needs to be raised quite a bit, which would just encroach on neighboring property and also drastically change the drainage of that whole neighborhood. I didn't see anywhere in the conditional use about, or is there a drainage plan that is required? I don't see that there. But the whole area would just change the lands or the drainage patterns. And I've seen in other areas along PR 200 where a farmer has raised his field just a little bit and it's totally taken out his neighbor's trees, and we're still fighting that one. So it's just not an immediate issue. It could be repercussions down for years to come down the road. I just want to read my notes, so just give me a second here. According to Environment Canada, the water levels have exceeded the highest part of this lot 16 times in the past 20 years. So this is proof that it's a very low lot, and to bring in fill to raise it up, I think would be a bit more than a few trucks and moving existing dirt that's on the property right now. And again, yeah, the beach soil that was there, this is a he said, she said issue, but when I was there on Tuesday, I believe, no, Monday morning, I saw the beet juice. I saw the beet dirt, though it's white, it's a powder, it's not hard to miss. So it's not contained, it's not capped properly. I don't know who inspects those things, but it has not been done properly. Couple other points. The geotechnical report that was provided, that was done over 2 years ago, and I noticed in the report that it said when they were there at the time, the land was just basically agriculture with weeds and natural growth on the land. Well, on Monday when I was there was a lot more than that. There was definitely land being moved around. There was some hills created from what I understand, the beet soil. And where it was capped, there was a motorhome and a boat or something on it, and those items had already sunk. So it just doesn't sit well with me that this is being done to the property authorities' restrictions and guidelines, and who's going to govern all of those. Also, with the JIC recommendations in the geotechnical report, it says that 2 2-pound samples has to be collected and sent for analysis. So I would hope that those should be done in order to rule out the improper use of material on those dikes. Another precedent, I went and met with a neighbor or a resident on PR 200 who lives on the Red River. He had to sell his house I don't know who bought it, but one morning he woke up to this big boom and his whole garage had literally sunk. It pulled away from the house, which created the boom, and sunk into the yard. And he had been there for, I don't know, 35 years. So stuff, buildings and houses built along the river, and he set back a long ways from the river. So that river is nasty and dangerous and fast flowing. And I just can't see any more construction of residential properties being built along the river anywhere. That's pretty much all I've got to say. I think I've summed up what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belanger. Anyone else from council wishing to speak? I just want to echo Councillor Belanger, most points, but specifically and especially building along the river. We know what the Red River has done in the past and continues to do even at its weakest flood years. It's detrimental that we as council and continuing councils really consider any new homes going onto the Red River, or frankly not considering them, because we don't want to see our new residents or our current residents or potential residents suffer from the wonders of nature. So I'm very much against any new homes directly along that river, especially in that area where it is the lowest point. So seeing no other comments from council, just lost my page here. I will ask council to vote. Cast their vote, please, online.
It's not ready on my end. Is it ready on anybody else's end?
Not ready on my end either. Maybe I need to.
It's hiding at the bottom.
Oh yeah, you're right, it is. Thank you. Please cast your votes.
The vote is defeated 0-5.
Thank you very much. Moving on to 6.2.2 C11 2020 Pyrera PR 247.
Okay, let me get a second here. Notices were sent out to neighboring properties within 100 meters. Was sent to the MRPD, the retort manager, building inspector, council, CO, and fire chief. Was posted on site and on our municipal board and municipal website.
Thank you. I'll open the public hearing at 8:15 p.m. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor that's at council chambers?
No, there's not.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor online?
Good evening.
Mr. Yeah, Mr. Claude Mousseau.
Yes, I'm in favor, but I have a few questions before, I guess, affirming that I'm in favor.
Absolutely.
I'm looking at the site map that the RM has provided, but there's no dimensions there on the width of the house or the side yards. It only shows the house. I'm just curious at what the zoning bylaw states as far as the width of side yards. Do you know offhand?
Mr. CEO, do you have that information?
Off the top of my head, no, unfortunately. But when the application comes in for a building permit, they would have to adhere to the sight lines accordingly. I believe in the agricultural limited zone, the frontage is a setback of 125 feet. And side yards, I'm not going to give a number because I'm not 100% sure. I haven't memorized our new zoning bylaw by heart yet, so unfortunately.
Well, I was looking at, sorry, I was looking at the bylaw, and I guess under agricultural limited, seeing that it doesn't allow residences without a conditional use. I don't know if it states in there what those numbers are, so I was just, it's out of curiosity more than anything else. Because the lot itself is not super wide, like it's, I mean, I live 2 lots down. I'm very familiar with the area, but I guess it's only like 340 feet wide. I guess it depends on how big the house is as well, right?
Yeah, correct. There should be if you do have the bylaw in front of you, there should be a bulk table in there. It's maybe a little bit difficult to understand, but the dimensions should be on there as well.
Under agricultural limited or under, do I have to look somewhere else? Well, I guess it doesn't, I mean, I see the applicants are there, so they could probably fill in. I mean, I don't see the house being 300 feet wide or so. Okay, so I guess I'm in favor if they might, are you saying they might need a variance later on when they actually apply for a building permit? If it's too close?
Correct. If it is too close, then we will not be issuing a building permit until the sight lines are all met and adhered to. And if they're within the allowed amounts, then we have to go through this process, not as a conditional use, but as a variation. And we've had a few already of those tonight.
Okay, I understand. I've been listening all along. Okay, so I'm in favor. I have no objection.
Thank you, Mr. Musso.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anything received in favor?
I don't believe so, no.
Is there anyone wishing to speak against at the council chambers?
No, there is not.
Anyone wishing to speak against online? I will do a final call. Is there anyone wishing to make comments, speak in favor or against, or just general concerns before I close the public hearing? Okay, I will close the public hearing at 8:19 p.m. Do I have a mover?
Councilor Mamchuk.
Thank you. Second.
Councilor Pelletier.
Councilor.
Thank you.
The resolution would read, therefore be resolved that conditional use application C11-2020 is approved subject to the following conditions: that the applicant obtains a building permit from the Armory Shot. Submitted plans are to include detailed architectural drawings stamped by an engineer. Applicant is to apply for and obtain a septic field permit from the province. Applicant is responsible for all associated costs pertaining to a water system. Site plan is to include setbacks in compliance with Table 10-2 of Zoning Bylaw 9-2019. That would be for the information for Mr. Musso, who made representation. And the applicant would sign a confirmation letter accepting the terms of the order, and audits can be conducted to ensure compliance, and any non-compliance issues may be cause to revoke at the conditional use at any time.
Thank you very much, Mr. CEO. Does council have any discussion before I call for the vote on this? Comments, questions, concerns?
Down here.
Not here.
Oh, it's all good.
Okay, I will have council please cast their vote.
That vote is carried 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on here, 6.2.3 C12. Sorry, my computer just glitched. 6.2.3 C12 2020-2020 Heartland Holdings Inc. 618 Discovery Drive. I will go ahead, Mr. Shield.
This is to allow an industrial multiplex in a MA zone for 24 units. Notices were sent out to 100 meters of said property, as well as the McDonald-Richot Planning District, Richot Public Works Manager, Building Inspector, Council, CEO, and Fire Chief. It was posted on site, as well as posted on the municipal board and municipal website.
Okay, I will open the public hearing at 8:22 p.m. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor at the council chambers?
No, there is not.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak online?
I think it's something much needed. It's going to be an industrial multiplex, as you gentlemen and ladies know from your information. Purpose of it is that we've had difficulty with requirements and requests for larger equipment, specifically heavier equipment such as concrete pumpers, hydrovac trucks, even tractor units for tractor trailer units. We're not associating this with trailers, mind you, but other heavy equipment that is beyond the normal spec of what you deal with in parking lots. So we're actually putting in a building that has three-phase power, first of all, to each unit, individual to each unit. And then we're also putting in a concrete parking lot instead of asphalt. Because when you get some of these heavy 70, 80,000 pound trucks, they turn their wheels, they chew your parking lots to pieces because they're just not built for that. So we're going to actually concrete the entire facility for that. And some of the guys that we're dealing with want smaller units. They don't need bigger square footage. They need more like the parking stalls, that type of stuff. So that's the intended use for the project here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Workington. Does council have any questions for Paul?
Right at this
I
time.
have a question, Paul. The plan we have is pretty small, but it looks like there's fencing in between the two buildings, right? Do you have fencing on both the east and west sides?
On the easterly side, we have to fence. The whole property will be fenced in, sort of in short, yes. We're a little bit restricted on the east side because of the pipeline that runs through. So we actually isolate it on the westward side of the pipeline, although our lot boundaries do extend to the east side.
Okay. I was just because you had mentioned that there's going to be some outdoor storage. That was kind of the intent, and that's why you're paving the whole thing.
Not on this one. That's actually on a different site. We're doing that. Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, we had talked about that on the back of these properties, adding some outside storage. We sort of, maybe that didn't get into the report, I'm not sure, but on this building, we're going to forego the outside storage and stick just with the indoor. But on an upcoming project we're doing here, we're going to request outdoor storage space.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you very much.
Anything else from council?
Not here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Workington. I will ask if there's anyone else wishing to speak in favor online. Anything received in favor?
Nothing received.
Anyone wishing to speak against at council chambers?
No, there isn't.
Anyone wishing to speak against online? Anything received against?
Nothing received against.
Thank you. I will do one last call for any comments in favor or opposition from chambers or online. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing at 8:25 p.m. Do I have a mover?
Mamchuk?
Mr. Mamchuk moves it. Councilor Belanger seconds it.
Therefore be resolved that conditional use application C12 2020 to allow a 24-unit industrial multiplex in the MA industrial agricultural zone is approved subject to the following conditions. That the applicant shall enter into a development agreement with the municipality per zoning bylaw 9/2019 part 5 section 5.17. Applicant shall comply with the municipal noise bylaw 14-03. Hours of operation shall be limited from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. If yard lighting is to be used, the applicant shall ensure that lighting levels do not cause any disruption or nuisance to neighboring areas or affected roadways. The applicant shall ensure that all proposed construction conforms to the Manitoba building codes, fire codes, and other municipal and or provincial permits and approvals as may be required. Applicant may wish to seek the help of an engineer, architect, or other professionals who are certified in these fields to ensure compliance. Applicant is to apply for and obtain a building permit for each of the buildings from the R.M. office. The occupancy permits will be required for each individual unit within the building. Further drawings may be required indicating fire separations dependent on proposed occupancies adjacent to one another. Applicant complies with the littering bylaw 5-2011. Any signage shall comply with the municipal zoning bylaw 19-2019, part 11. Exterior storage is to be contained within a maximum of 10-foot privacy fence as per section 312 of the zoning bylaw and hidden from public view. And the applicant shall provide a confirmation letter signed accepting the terms of the order, and site visits may be conducted to ensure compliance, and any non-compliance may cause revoke to the conditional use at any time.
Thank you very much. I'll open it up for discussion within council. Council, any comments?
Good here. It's nice to see it filling up.
Absolutely. I'll make the same comment. I appreciate the demand for different types of multiplexes or different types of sites. I think it encourages new businesses to come and different businesses that we would have never thought of coming to Richard. So again, I'm looking forward to something like this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will now ask council to put it to a vote. Please cast your vote.
Waiting for Councillor Boulanger's vote to appear.
Councillor Boulanger may be having some technical difficulties. It just started raining here again. Mr. CEO, I will ask that if council's okay with it as chair, we will continue because we have quorum. Council, give me a nod if you're okay with
yes, and regardless, I don't want to sound wrong here, but regardless of Councillor Boulanger's vote, the vote is carried for this 0 at this point in time.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will move on. Thank you, Paul. We will move on to 7 bylaws to consider. 7.1 bylaw 4 2020 fiber optics loan, first reading. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Clayton.
Thank you. Second.
Councillor Pelletier.
Thank you.
All right, council has before them a bylaw whereby the municipality would be making a $250,000 loan to John Q Connect regarding internet services. This is allowed under the Municipal Act. Municipalities cannot make a loan to private business ventures, but as a municipal corporation, participating corporation, they can. The terms of the loan is $250,000 at 2.5% over a 6.5-year term. Basically, the first year and a half, the John Q Connect would be responsible to repay only the interest portion of the loan, and therefore the last 5 years of the term would include the principal and interest as well. A schedule of that has been provided to council as part of the bylaw. as well. I believe that there is also in the bylaw a Schedule A, which is basically the terms. No, sorry. It's a promissory note as to John Q's commitment to paying the project. Not only does it include the arm of Reachot, but there are also 5 other entities, the arm of McDonald, Headingley, Reachot, Portage La Prairie, Rockwood, and the town of Stonewall would also be contributing the $250,000. Schedule B is the payment schedule. If there's any other questions, please fire away.
Okay, I'll open it up to council for discussion. Council, any comments?
Hi,
Just,
sorry I had to leave. I just got back. Go ahead, Curtis, sorry.
Yeah, I'll just chime in quickly here. To my knowledge, we were somewhat fast-tracked for this project, right? Towards the end of the discussions, because I know that, especially through COVID, we've determined that there's one heck of a need for connectivity in our municipality.
Yeah, absolutely. We were not originally on the phase 1 plan. We were on phase 2 of the, I think it's a 4-phase plan, but I could be wrong on how many phases there are. And after discussion and lobbying from council to the municipal group or the John Q group, John Q Connect, we were added to the first phase.
That's great. Now, I think a little bit has changed since those initial discussions. I know one of the communities, like in my ward, St. Agath, they're considering an alternative to this. As far as the subscribers or the subscriptions are going to go with the with RF Now coming into the municipality, I mean, is there still an appetite to? I mean, I know that in Councillor Belanger's ward, I think there's a desperate need for improved connectivity as well. Correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, and I think I've answered my own question. The municipality is big enough that we have room probably for more than one ISP.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's room for probably the 15, 20 ISPs that are probably around the area right now. What sets this aside is this is a borrowing bylaw to bring in an opportunity for fiber optics to those that can't get it. So yeah, I guess I'm not really answering your question, Curtis, but yeah, there's definitely more than enough room for ISP providers throughout all of the region. And if one area decides to go one way, you know, we are more than willing to bend, I guess, our fiber optics network to an area that doesn't get that same equal opportunity that I'm really promoting throughout the region.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from council?
Actually, sorry, one more.
Okay.
Do we know where they're going to be entering into the municipality? I know that there was some talk about to the north through Howden.
Yeah, so again, I can't get into specifics because I don't have the representative here, but I do know that again, with one area possibly going a different route, we would probably go into another area that desperately needs the internet or fiber optics. So we're looking at probably altering routes if what one community wants to do is different. But originally, I think the initial route was through St. Agath.
But I guess now sort of the ultimate goal is to service everybody that is underserviced right now, correct?
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal, absolutely. But I don't have the exact line, and if they are going to go the opposite route right now, all I do know is the original one was St. Agath.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from council?
I'll just make the comment. You're right. There are a lot of residents in the rural areas that just don't have the access to any internet. And if they're on any kind, their speeds are super slow. So I think this is a way to reach those people. What I like about this whole proposal is that there's no pressure. There's no sales pressure for people to sign up now, or else you'll never get internet in your whole entire life. It's an open thing. If you don't decide right away and you realize, oh my goodness, I need internet 2 years from now, you can sign up and hook up into the system. That's what I like about the whole thing. And it is a payback. So it's really no stress on council, or you know what I'm trying to say. It's all
Very limited.
guaranteed. Yeah.
No, I agree. And that's what I like about it too. Yes, I like the opportunity that any community has maybe another provider that might come in. But what I really appreciate about this opportunity is it's a loan that we can give back. So I agree, Janine, there's other areas, and there actually, I think most municipality needs internet, except for some towns. But yeah, I like that as well. Did we lose Councillor Mamchuk? Sorry, just before we continue.
I think there's having problems at the municipal office. I'm in communications with our assistant CEO as well.
Okay, well, we have quorum here anyway, so we'll continue.
I have Councillor Mamchuk on the phone, so we will try to do communications that way.
Does Councillor Mamchuk have anything to add?
I don't know why. We'll try again.
Okay, well, Councillor Mamchuk will continue to try to get on. We will move on if council has nothing else to add. I will call for a vote. Council, please cast your vote.
I could hear you, Ron. How do you cast your vote?
Okay, thank you. I didn't know if you were there, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm here. Can you what is your vote, Ron?
Yes.
Yes, okay. That vote would be 5-0.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, 8.1.1. Subdivision file 4165-20-7909, Leshkoff. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Belanger.
Thank you. Second?
Councillor Clayton.
Thank you.
Okay, this property,
Somebody has to turn their phone off.
yeah, it's me because of the two-way. Oh, Councillor Mamchuk's back, so I'm going to hang up on him. Okay, sorry, folks. This subdivision was discussed at the planning level. It is a subdivision being done at 1425 PTH 75, which is just north of Red River Drive, coming off the highway. I believe that it is allowing to take part of the lake that's into the eastern side of the property. One of the conditions that will have to be looked at would have to be to rezone that from agricultural limited to the commercial highway zone as per our development plan enterprise center policy area. So, and we've included that as part of the approval process for the subdivision.
You're muted, Chris.
Sorry, thank you. Is there any discussion or comments from council?
I have a comment about the process here. This is a subdivision, correct?
It is.
So the Macdonald-Richard Planning Development Plan says there's to be absolutely no ifs, ands, or buts about any subdivisions occurring between PTH 75 and PR 200 and then between, well, whatever, you know what I mean? So, although, don't get me wrong, I don't have any objections to this. I just don't know how we get around the subdivision ruling in the McDonald-Ritchop Planning Development Plan. If we pass this, is it going to pass through the province? I guess that's not our issue right now, but I'm just curious because, yes, I'm just curious. Mitch, do you have anything to?
I understand your reasoning, Councillor Belanger. I think the process here is that we're not creating a new lot in the process. If you look at the zoomed map, the two parcels, Peter is stealing from Paul in order to have a bigger lot in this case. And that lot, whatever portion is in red, is to be consolidated with the original parcel. So I agree with your statement. Land should not be subdivided, creating new lots, but in this case, I think it's just a manipulation of land.
Okay.
And the province, the province, the planning recommendations are also there. So I'm sure that they would have taken a look at that. And then I'm just going to that right now. Their office has no concerns with it, except for the exception that it has to be rezoned from agricultural limited to CH. And that's the only concern that they did put on there.
Yeah, Janine, I think if you look at the lot to the north there, it would be a different story if they wanted to split that one, right? Into two new lots, whereas this is just moving the line on two existing lots. If it was to make a third one, then province would probably say no.
I see. Okay. Makes sense. Thank you. So it is a subdivision, but really not really.
Yeah, it's not changing.
Whenever you're, sorry, Councillor Pelletier, whenever you start moving property lines, the only way to do that is via subdivision. So, and the next item on the agenda is another example of that, where they're just moving lot lines around, but you have to go through the subdivision process.
So maybe it's something, Councillor Pelletier, we need to bring up with MRPD in our planning, because it's pretty black and white in the planning, in the Planning District Act. So
just the wording, it could probably get.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from council? Okay, I'll call for the vote.
Sorry, I had to switch devices because I'm losing devices here. Good thing I have multiples.
The vote is carried 5-0.
Thank you very much. Moving on to 8.1.2 subdivision file 4615-20-7915 River Trails Development. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Clayton.
Councillor Clayton moves it. Councillor Pelletier seconds.
Here again, if you go to the site map, folks, this is regarding the lot by the cemetery and the school. In order for the developer to do a better design, there's a land swap being made between the school division and the developer for equal amounts, just a shift in lines. Therefore, we still have to go through the subdivision process. We're not creating anything new, just shifting lines and creating two lots. The western lot will be for the developers in an L-shaped form. The lot to the east will be transferred over to the school division.
Thank you. Is there any comments or questions from council?
Not here.
I see that.
Sorry.
Okay, I will ask council to cast their vote.
That vote is carried 5-0.
Oh, my computer's dying. Okay, thank you. Moving on to 8.2.1 Deer Ridge Development Agreement. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Belanger.
Thank you. Second.
Mamchuk.
Thank you.
This development agreement, I believe, is for, doesn't say in the resolutions, but I believe it's for a 15-lot subdivision in the Grand Point area, just north and adjacent to the Grand. The development agreement, nothing very outstanding in the development agreement. It's almost a carbon copy of the one that council approved for the Schinkel development of the Grand. They will continue with the pathway along the Seine River. I believe we'll work in cooperation with them in regards to that, so that they are not too close to the Seine River, and try to destroy the least amount of trees as they go through that wooded area. That area is a public reserve, unlike the property or the trail at the Grand, where it did have to go through some private property with easements, etc. This is fully on public reserve, so they have enough land to do so. As if the trail does go too close to the river or something, it will also be the responsibility of the developer to provide some kind of fencing for security protection for the people using the trail. That pathway is to be built within 1 year of the commencement certificate being issued. So they'll have to provide the insurance, the letter of credit, and I believe also the capital fees for the development prior to getting commencement certificate, and then they're off to the races. Councillor Belanger had some questions regarding the dedication of green space. Tried to answer that as best as possible to her. The Planning Act does allow for a contribution of 10% when there are subdivisions being done. In this case, I believe our planning person measured 6% of public reserve. However, they are also contributing the cost of putting the pathway in as part of the development. So I think it's a fair trade-off, for lack of better words. If there's any other questions for this development, please ask away.
I'll open up for council to ask any questions.
I just have a question, Mitch, and we talked about this earlier about the time frame for the agreement. The terms of this agreement shall be from the date of its execution until all of the developer's obligations have been performed to the satisfaction of the municipality. Now, there was a development agreement that we passed and put in place for along Burnett Road a couple years ago, and a year went by and nothing happened, so that development agreement expired. So that's what I was referring to, where we had a year on the development agreement. Was that just a one-off scenario, or is that not part of all the development agreements?
I'm not 100% sure of which development agreement you're talking about off of Burnett. Just that whenever there is a development that is done, it is registered on all the lots within that development. And when the time comes that all the obligations of the developer have been fulfilled, and only at that point is the development agreement removed from the title. So everybody has a caveat on that property where the development agreement is registered. So if they want to sell the lots, that's fine and dandy. There's conditions set out in the development agreement that you can't start selling lots until the infrastructure is in, right? And you can't start transferring titles over when the road isn't in, right? So stuff like that is already built in. But as far as termination of the DA, that's how it would occur. And it would be up to administration to ensure that all requirements that are put in the development agreement are adhered to before removing it from the caveat. I don't know if that answers your question or clouded the waters more.
It clouded it a bit. The property in question was north of John McDougall's land there, that one that backed onto.
Yes, I know. Okay, now I know which one you mean. That was,
and it went through a year of nothing, and then it expired.
Yeah, it did. That was a subdivision, so they could not get into that development agreement stage. So therefore, it lapsed, and then basically you have 2 years to react on your subdivision, and that was not the case with them. So therefore, having no development agreement in place, by development, by subdivision. In this case here, they have the subdivision in place. They're moving on to the next step, which is part of the subdivision requirements is to have that development agreement in place.
Okay. Thank you. And then the last question I had when we talked about this, you said it was going to be part of each builder's requirements about the trees. You know, me and trees, we need trees. I just thought that was part of the development agreement, but.
It was for the GRAN, but the issue that we had with the GRAN was that the road width along with the drainage requirements, then we fell onto private property for putting up the trees. So that was the issue there. I would foresee the same problem here if they keep consistency. Therefore, we can't really plant the trees in the ditches or on the road, right? So in talking with the developer, I believe that they'll try to put something in their control standards or architectural design to have the homeowners put up some trees.
Okay. Makes sense. Thank you. That's all.
Anything else from council?
Good here.
Okay, I will call for the question. Cast your vote online. Oh, wrong one.
Vote is carried 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on to Salco Phase 1B Development Agreement. Do I have a mover?
Ron Mamchuk.
Thank you. Second.
Councillor Clayton.
Thank you very much.
All right. This is another development agreement for the St. Adolphe Land Company. This one is a little bit more complicated because there are currently 2 conditional units in play. We have conditional use C3 2016 and C3 2020. C3 2016 are the 2 lots to the east, and C3 2020, as council will remember, is the multifamily proposal of the 33 lots, pretty much directly in front of those other 2 lots. The problem we're having with this development agreement is trying to be able to provide to the developer the ability to construct the services without immediately moving ahead with either of the 2 conditional uses in play. The reason why is because of the multifamily project at the lot in the corner that Stellar Capital has purchased for their 102 unit multifamily. They're looking at getting going shortly, but there is some lack of servicing that is required in order for that to move ahead. So we're trying to draft to allow the developer to allow construction of those services, even without some kind of not guarantee, but idea as to what's going on those 2 lots. Plus, we know what's going on the other 33 lots. Part of the development agreement, I think that's very important in here, is the fencing requirement that within a year of starting construction, that a fence be put on the properties, in between the properties at Bartman Bay, and the other one, and let me just try to figure out my mapping system here. Should know these streets by heart by now. Oh, great. Our mapping doesn't show the streets. But Harvest Lane, there we go. Harvest Lane, and between Harvest Lane lots and Bartman Drive lots. So a 6 foot high privacy fencing will be required there. The other requirement as well is to try to beautify the public reserve areas. So the public reserve is identified in one of the schedules in the development agreement. It's basically that guitar-shaped lot whereby we would be requiring them to either seed or sod that with grass and put in a limestone pathway to try to promote connectivity and active transportation in the area. And that would start at the arch of the traffic circle where they have their grand entrance and go all the way to the pedestrian crossing at Bartman Drive. One of the requirements, whether they start on the project on Harvest Lane or those other 2 lots, there is going to be a requirement for the public reserve grass and pathway to be in place no later than October 2021. So that is a requirement to be had immediately, and it's only to the benefit of the developer to have that in order to make the development more beautiful, more accommodating, and maybe sales might be increased as a result as well. The council has a proposal draft there. We are still in the process of dotting the I's and crossing the T's on some minor language issues more than anything else. So I would respectfully ask council to sign off on this development agreement as presented, with the understanding that administration will be meeting actually tomorrow with legal and Salco to finalize the small wordings and the I's and T's type of thing. So nothing major will come as a result for tomorrow. The base of the agreement is in play. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. You could unmute yourself as well.
Thank you. Any discussion from council?
Not here.
Not here. Okay, thank you. I will call for the question. Cast your vote online, please.
I don't know, maybe Mitch should read it first.
Oh, sorry, Mitch, go ahead.
Just kidding.
I didn't read the previous one.
I know.
I know, this one was longer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Council, cast your vote. Jane, you can't do that to the poor guy.
Mitch has been busy tonight.
The vote is carried 5-0, and I would only read the therefore be it resolved, and it would say that it enters into the development agreement as attached. Schedule 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you for clarifying that. 8.3 North Grassy Phase 1 partial release of letter of credit. Do I have a mover?
Ron Mamchuk?
Second.
Councillor Blanger.
Thank you.
Okay, the letter of credit that we're releasing is still part of their phase 1 development. It has to do with the water station, the lift station that's at the corner of the development that is owned by the RM. We released the letter of credit, a portion of the letter of credit a while back due to the streets and all that infrastructure is in place and is well. We had concerns with the water station, lift station, because it wasn't quite completed, wasn't operational yet within a year. So now that it has been, there's been some minor deficiencies. That's why we're requesting council to release only 90% of that portion related to those works, keeping 10 for the remedial work. Once those are done, we will then release the other 10%. And this is a recommendation made by our Public Works Manager.
Thank you. Any comments from council?
No, I initially thought if the 10% was enough, but Public Works would know, so I'm confident that they've calculated what they needed to retain.
Public Works actually recommended 9%. I like round numbers, so I said 10.
I was waiting for that. That's literally waiting for that.
Oh, man.
I think most of this money just goes straight into their next
development phase.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, yeah. They're constantly trying to change with the market demands, etc. So they're looking at their phase 2 part and connecting it with their phase 3. So they've kind of changed their minds as to what they're going to do. So we're going to be requiring more money for that letter of credit. So it's almost a transfer, but as far as the paperwork goes, we try to keep those letter of credits totally separate from phase to phase.
Anything else from council?
No.
No, all good here.
Okay, I will call for the question. Cast your vote, please.
The vote is carried 5-0.
Oh, thank you. 8.4.1 May 2020 building permit reports. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Blanger.
Councillor Clayton.
Sorry.
Second by Councillor Clayton. Thank you.
For the month of May, we've issued 14 permits, total value of about $950,000 in value, bringing in $4,000 in fees. So bringing that total up to 70 permits in total, 15 million in projected value, and $40,000 in permit fees. And this is ahead of last year's numbers at this point in time.
Perfect, thank you. Any comments from council?
That's good.
Okay, I'll call for the question. Please cast your vote.
That is carried 5-0.
Thank you. 8.4.2 recreation facility funding. Before I continue, is council okay continuing, or do they need a 2-minute break?
There's only a couple more things. I'm good.
Okay.
Let's roll.
Okay, 8.4.2 recreation facility funding. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Mamchuk?
Second.
Councillor Pelletier.
Take it away, CEO.
On behalf of our Director of Recreation, we have put $150,000 in our financial plan for our recreational facilities. The recommendation that is coming out from the Rec Advisory Committee is that we take $43,700 of that 150, and those are to be applied for capital projects, and those are listed in there for the resolution. The Santa Gatha Arena furnace is $7,700. The water tank and interior mold remediation at St. Adolphe for $16,000, and the Ile des Chênes Arena emergency door replacement at $20,000. The balance of that would then be $106,300. That would be divided up to the facilities on a square footage proportion, 90 cents per square foot for all indoor facilities and 10 cents per square foot for outdoor facilities. And this is a recommendation coming forward from the Rec Advisory Committee and your Director of Recreation.
Thank you.
Just a correction. Yeah, just correction. 1 cent per square foot for outdoor. Sorry, Mitch, you said 10 cents. Didn't he? But
yeah.
I wrote down 10 cents. I see 1 cent. I should look up my notes better. Thank you, Councillor Belanger.
It's okay. You like round numbers, so you're just going up.
I'm all for the 10. Hey.
Take it.
Any comments from council? Okay, I'll ask council. That's good. Thank you. I'll ask council to cast their vote.
The vote is carried 5-0.
Thank you. 8.4.3 hydro CDI, St. River Minor Ball. Do I have a mover?
Mamchuk?
Councillor Pelletier moves it. Councillor Mamchuk seconds.
All right. Back in the day, the Seine River Minor Ball was approved for $15,000 in hydro CDI funds for a lighting project. I believe this was a couple years ago. That project did not move forward, so those funds are still sitting in limbo. The proposal is still to advance that $15,000 of CDI funding to the Seine River Minor Ball, but those dollars would be going towards diamond safety upgrades. So I'm not 100% sure what that all entails, but if it's regarding the safety of the players and the safety of the diamonds, that is the recommendation coming forward from our recreation director.
Thank you. Any comments from council?
None here.
Seeing none, I'll go to council to cast their vote, please.
The vote is carried 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on. 8.4.4 GPHA Clubhouse support. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Belanger.
Second.
Councillor Clayton.
Thank you.
Over the years, we've had the green space funding that ran from 2015 to 2019. And as the communities came up with green space funding projects, those dollars were spent out accordingly. However, throughout the years, there was always a leftover balance, and that was being thrown into the recreation reserve. In order to deplete the remaining balance of funding for the green space dollars that were allocated, there's approximately $83,500 left of that. In order to also keep the balance of dollars being spent between wards, it is the recommendation that Grand Point and Howden receive $53,000, and the recommendation is that that $53,000 goes towards the Grand Point Clubhouse project. There would still be a balance outstanding in that fund for Ile des Chênes of about $16,300, and St. Adolphe would also have a remaining balance of $14,275. And I'm sorry, Councillor Clayton, I think St. Agathe has used up all their green space dollars already allocated for them.
We're tapped out, are we?
I believe so.
Any questions, comments from council?
No.
Thank you. Councillor Belanger, I'll just ask a question. I probably missed it in planning. Grand Point and Howden is essentially one ward. You're okay with the distribution going to one because Howden probably received more earlier or at another time?
They did receive funding in another time for their hall upgrades.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure what those funds were, but yeah.
Okay, sounds good. I just want to keep an even playing field for everyone. Seeing nothing else, I will ask council to cast their vote.
That is carried 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on, 9 in total is all for information only for council. We will move on to 11, adjournment. Do I have a mover?
Yes.
Thank you. Second.
Yes.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Council, please cast your vote.
And the vote is carried 5-0.
Thank you. The tribe has spoken. Dominic, please end recording.
The